Hi everyone, it's Ash from FPL Hints, here with my final team selection ahead of the 24-25 season. As always, if you're able to like, share and subscribe, that will be greatly appreciated. If you want to buy me a coffee, the link will be in the description below or in the comments under this video. Right then, we finally made it. Game week 1 is finally upon us. All those mock drafts, all those draft updates have finally come to fruition. And I'm here today to share my final 15. And it's been a real long journey from that first draft without the fixtures towards the end of May. And then we had the fixtures, and the game went live, and all those changes that we've made since then have really come down to this. But an important caveat here, although I do say that this is my final draft, I do reserve the right to change even up until the final deadline. And if I do make any final last minute changes, then I will pin those changes under this video, or I will put them on my channel on X. So just keep a lookout for that. So yeah, look, I'm not going to waste too much of your time, and we're going to go straight into each of the new changes, and I'll also confirm captaincy as well for game week 1. So first and foremost, just on the goalkeeping situation, in my penultimate draft, I had it as Henderson and Fabianski, and I've gone over this time and time again as well with respect to what other elite managers are doing as well. They're not actually doing this. They're actually clever enough in picking a goalkeeping combination, as you can see there, where they've got a backup goalie and a starting goalie from the same team. So Valdemarson and Flecken are the go-to in this instance. So for their opening 7 games, Crystal Palace at home, Southampton at home, West Ham at home, and Wolves at home. And then you've got the red block games of Liverpool, Man City, and Spurs. I'm looking at the longevity, that how many clean sheets am I potentially seeing between Crystal Palace and Brentford? And realistically, in those first 7, there might be just 1 clean sheet there. And with Brentford, if we're trying to be as open-minded as possible, I think there's at least, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, you know what? I'm going to get rid of Henderson. Going to get rid of Matthews. I'm going to get in Flecken. I'm going to get in Valdemarson. I do see the value in having them both as my goalkeepers for that price range. And then onto my other players. I'm going to get rid of Cannon. I'm going to get rid of Saka. I'm going to get rid of Smith Rowe. I think Haaland, Isak, Gordon, Mohamed Salah, and Kunku are locks for my team. Can't really see myself removing them at all. And onto my defence here as well. Barco, there was talk of him having his place reserved for the first few games with Estupiñán injured, but I've heard that Estupiñán's back in training. Look at the opening games, I wouldn't have started Barco for those first 3 games, and by the time I would have potentially started him against Ipswich or Forest, we can see that again, generous fixtures for those 2 matches, but then what's the point of having him if you're not going to start him and then he drops in value, so out he goes. Konsa is a question mark. I haven't ruled him out, but I'm going to see if I can make him work. And Mikalenko as well. I just want to make sure that I get that correct. I think Johnson can't really look beyond him. He's expected to start for Ipswich and make sense as a 4.0. We've got Hall there. Again, lots of upside, but there is concern that with Lewis Hall, X-Mins could potentially be an issue. It's a really tricky one, purely because there are so many there's 3 4.5 million options for Newcastle United. and I want to make sure that the one that I get is the one that is most likely to start. And a Livramento is a question mark for some. And just onto the engage managers data, Burn 20%, Hall 15%. So something that is worth bearing in mind as well. So let's just go back now with my final squad. So I've changed my goalkeepers, flipped out my Palace goalkeepers, and I brought in Flecken and Valdemarson. So the other player I want to get in, and again, you saw that I had Saka in my team, but I'm going to go back to Arsenal, and I know they've got Jesus. Nketiah apparently is due to leave, or certainly won't be challenging for minutes there. So in terms of that position up top, I'm going to put in Kai Havertz. Of course, he got reclassified as a forward for the 24-25 season. So I want entry into that attacking Arsenal cover. Again, with Arsenal players, they are not really highly owned among the elite managers as of now. Don't blame them when you've got Aston Villa away, Spurs away, and Man City away in the first 5 games. And I'll just bring up the Arsenal data as well among engaged managers, just so that you can have a look as well on where they're standing. So let me just increase the price filter. So we can see sorted by percentage, and I'm just going to do all positions for Arsenal. So Saka, again, to be fair, he is highly owned, 44.8%, but it's all the other ones. Gabriel, 17%, Raya, 16%, Saliba, similar percentage. Havertz is almost a differential within the Arsenal defence there. And if you just add up the amount of managers in this category, the elite managers, engaged managers that have Arsenal defence, let's just add up the bottom ones as well. So I've got about 4% at the bottom. And then Raya and Saliba, 34%. And then with Gabriel, add them up, just over half have defensive Arsenal cover. Whereas on official FPL stats, it's well over 80%. So I'm not going to get defensive Arsenal cover. But just going back to my own team, Havertz is in for game week 1, barring exceptions. And like I've said, if I hear otherwise close to the deadline, I will simply change my team by doing my updates and then putting the updates in the description below. So Havertz, Haaland, Isak, a very different front line to many other FPL managers. Now, I did consider João Pedro, but there's now links with Brighton, with another forward, and I think his X-Mins could potentially get affected. I'm expecting him to start, but they've got so many other forwards, and I want my forwards to be relatively settled. Like Isak, you expect him to start, no real X-Men challengers except for perhaps Wilson. You've got Haaland there and Havertz, which I think is a very strong front line. And then with the midfield, it'll just leave me in a position whereby I'd need to make some collective decisions. And one problem I had last season, I benched so many points. So I kind of want to nip that in the bud and do something different, something that the elite managers aren't doing. And I'm going to pick a £4.5 million midfielder. I did think of a 5.0 option, and that would have easily for me have been Fabio Carvalho, but I simply just can't make it work with him. So just looking at the 4.5 options, there aren't really that many to choose from where X-Mins aren't an issue. So for me, it's really Harry Winks, 4.5 million, sub 1, maybe sub 2. And that leaves me with 25 million in the bank to fill in 5 slots effectively. So yeah, it's going to be a tough ask, but you've got to hang in there with me. So let's go to my other midfielder. I'm going to pick someone who I'm expecting him to hopefully start, get a healthy number of X-Mins, provided that he is fit as well. Going to Liverpool, and it's Jota. There you go. 14% owned on official FPL. Let's see what I've got left. I've got 17.5 million in the bank to fill in the remaining 4 slots. Now, with Liverpool and Jota in particular, I just look at these percentages. So let me just go here. So let's in fact increase the amount. So on official FPL, Mohamed Salah 33%, Diogo Jota 14%, and then I'm going to flip back to the other data set, the engaged data's manager set. Mohamed Salah 57.5%, Jota is 33.9%. So you can clearly see that among the engaged managers, they do see value in Diogo Jota. His ownership is more than doubled there. So I think there's a logic there. And hopefully he could even potentially start out of position for Liverpool as well. Potential upside there. Certainly not a captaincy option for me. But then look at the other midfielders in FPL who are 7.5 million or less. And just going to bring this up there. Who were the options? Eze, who actually wasn't in any of my drafts, actually, but someone who did make mock drafts. But then the concern is he might be making a move and will no longer be the talisman player for Crystal Palace. We don't know what his minutes situation will be for game week 1. Got Garnacho, who had a really great 23-24 season, came to the fore. But then if I had a choice between Garnacho and Jota, for the upside, I'd go for Jota for sure. Smith Rowe, if I had that extra million, I'd flip out Winks and get him in. You've got Kudus, Diaz, who's also 7.5 million. But the key thing here for me is with Jota, I look at the upside, and that's why I'm going for him. Now you can see that front line of Gordon, Salah, Nkunku, Jota, Havertz, Haaland, Isak. What I've effectively done is sacrificed a premium defender. And that had to be done because ultimately I wanted to basically get these big hitters in. The other big hitters that I missed out on were Son. Again, had Saka not that long ago. I've done a draft where I had Son, Saka, Haaland, and Salah. But yeah, for my team, this is my front line, a power front 7, as it were. So it leaves me with the defensive situation now that I need to address. And let's just start with the 4.0 defender here. So again, can't get Barco now because of the price drop risk and X-Min's issue. You've got Harwood Bellis, Feist, Taylor, and then you go further down, less likely to start. It's a short options really. But with Harwood Bellis, he got regular mins last season in the championship. And if I really, really wanted to start him, I'd start him game week 2, game week 5 at a push. He's really a sub 2, sub 3 option at best. But yeah, just from an X-Min's perspective, there's not really anyone else. Bednarek, if I can find him there he is. So yeah, that's who I have. And I've got 13.5 million now. So clearly it's just 4.5 million options that can complete my 15 players. So let's go here. So Anderson, Burn, Konsa are among the popular picks, Mikolenko and Robinson. I actually really want to get Robinson into my team just due to the 15 fantasy returns he got last season at 4.5 million. I don't think any other defender in his price range got that many. He got Leicester at home, Ipswich, West Ham, Newcastle. Okay, then it gets a bit tricky for him and Fulham, but I think there's a lot of value there. I did talk about Newcastle United and Dan Burn. He is one of the players I'm going to get, and he's a bit of a question mark as well. If I get news before the deadline that the Gahey transfer is confirmed or something else happens where Burn's minutes are an issue, I would flip him out. But the key thing with Dan Burn in particular is that I'd want to start him in pretty much all of those opening games. Okay, Man City in 6 would be a question mark. Spurs in 3 would be a question mark, but I'm happy to start in the vast majority of games. Mikolenko was the other player that I had, but then things do get like tricky with him in game week 3, and also, as we can see, in game week 4. But the rest of the matches look fairly reasonable. You got Leicester in that opening match as well, Ipswich in game week 8 as well. So again, a bit of attacking prowess hopefully with him. So in he comes. Again, I want 4.5 so that I don't need to rotate, but I'm going to start. Konsa was the other one. And with him, if I just bring his fixtures up, West Ham and Arsenal are a bit tricky, but then Leicester, Everton, Wolves, Ipswich after that. So that's something that is worth factoring in. Wanted Anderson, and in fact, some sort of Crystal Palace defensive cover, but then I looked with hindsight, it's really that Leicester match, which will be like a clean sheet option there. And yeah, the Gahey can't risk it with him because of the opening match being a question mark for him. Van de Ven of Spurs, start him, of course, against Leicester and Everton, but the Newcastle and Arsenal does get a bit tricky. But as I mentioned, the other player that I had, would I start Howard Bellis in 3 at a push? Probably not. And then you got United as well. So with Van de Ven, lack of clean sheets was a big issue for me. So I'm not going to get him in. But the player I'm going to get, 4.5 million, complete the Liverpool triple up, is Quansah. And that's maxed the budget out. Quansah, bit of an X-Mins issue. Just a reminder, last season, just only managed over 1,000 minutes, expecting him to start. Generous run of opening games. I'd effectively start him in all those matches, even the United one at a push if I had to. But game week 4, if I wasn't going to start him, who could I start? Let's just go to Ben Johnson. Game week 4, Brighton away. Potentially I could do that. And then Harwood Bellis again. It's really game week 3 and 5. So yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. Let's go back to Quansah again. So yeah, United in 3, but then he's got Forest in 4. So yeah, among all the £4.5 million defenders, it was a bit of a tough ask, but yeah, that was basically the only other option that I had. So yeah, let's confirm these transfers. This is my squad. So make the transfers. Again, no costs being deducted because I've done it before the deadline, 6:30 p.m. BST, so don't forget. And I'll just make sure that my team is correct in the correct order. And then I'll do my famous super zoom in. So Burn is a starter for me. Harwood Bellis is on the bench. Havertz is a starter for me. Winks is on the bench. Just change this around. There we go. And get him all the way down. There we go. And then I'll do my famous super zoom in. Valdemarsen's there. And I've not even mentioned my captain yet. So it was a tough call, a close call. But again, barring any last minute information, Mohamed Salah against Ipswich is my captain. Isak will be my vice captain. So let's do the famous super zoom in. And yeah, and then we're done. So here is my final team selection for game week 1 ahead of the 24-25 season. Flecken in goal. With Flecken and Valdemarsen, I've got that peace of mind that I've got a starting goalkeeper, whatever happens in those opening game weeks. The only issue is that I hope I don't need to triple up on Brentford in those opening games, but thankfully I've got that one slot still available. Onto the defence, Dan Burn, Kwanzaa, Mikolenko. Burn, generous run of opening games. Kwanzaa, generous run of opening games. Mikolenko, again, generous run of opening games as well. I'd really need to rely on all of these defenders, and I wouldn't want to really use my 4.0s except in one or two instances, so that's why I've got them all in. Onto the midfield, a midfield of Jota, Mohamed Salah to complete the triple up with Liverpool, and then Gordon is there as well, and Nkunku, expecting healthy X-Mins for all of these players. There are fitness issues, of course, with Nkunku and Jota because of fitness issues they've had over last season, but I really am looking at the upside, and I'm happy to trust them in this instance. And then look at that power 3 attack of Havertz, Haaland, and Isak. But in fact, I say power 3, it's actually a power 7 attack of Jota, Salah, Nkunku, Gordon, Havertz, Haaland, and Isak. Wanted to make it fit, wanted to make it work, wanted to make sure I tapped into as many generous fixtures as possible for the opening games. And then the bench, again, it all comes at a cost, but I've got Valdemarson, backup goalie to Flecken, which is fine because I've got a playing Brentford goalkeeper. Harry Winks is a £4.5 million enabler, hopefully won't hemorrhage the bench with points, unlike last year where it happened a fair bit. Johnson as the out of position 4.0, always liked one of them, whether it was Lundstrom or Reece Oxford in years gone by. Hopefully won't drop to 3.9 million by game week 3. And then Harwood Bellis as well as an additional 4.0 defender. So there you have it. That completes my lineup for the 24-25 season for game week 1. It's been a long journey, a fun journey, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. And I just want to reiterate again, whatever happens, FPL's a game. Just enjoy it really. And a lot of these picks that I've done, just as a reminder, on the engaged FPL manager data as well, that if I wanted to just simply go with the crowd, as it were, I would have done that, but I actually haven't. Okay, Isak and Haaland, fair enough. I think that Barco percentage will drop significantly when a lot of them catch wind of the fact that his minutes could be affected significantly. And at the same time, with the options that are available, they might look for another 4.0 defender at the last minute. So just keep a lookout for that as well. As a highly owned, but then the transfer question mark, I'll see that his percentage will drop significantly. I think Mohamed Salah 57.5%, that should rise as well, but I've tapped in. I've effectively sacrificed a premium defender in Trent or Gvardiol in getting that power 7 attack, and I've also effectively lost out on a playing sub 1 that I could potentially use. And again, it would be quite handy with the way that transfers are being rolled this season as well. So Trent and Gvardiol I'm missing out on, but got Nkunku, haven't got Saka, but I have got Havertz as my entry into the Arsenal attack. Gordon, I've got Henderson, who I did have in pretty much most of my recent drafts. I've had to give up on just so that I can make the goalkeeping combination work. And I see more value in having Flecken just due to more clean sheet potential in the opening games. And then, Jota, I've tapped into him. Robinson, who I could have got, but I kind of feel that just as $500,000 off in getting him because it's that first opening game and I'd bench him in other matches as well. Porro, another miss I've not got. Mikolenko, Harwood Bellis I have. Solanke, who was on my radar, but just couldn't make it work. I mean, I could make it work, actually. Get Solanke in, but then I'd lose Arsenal cover. And for me, it was, do I want Arsenal cover or do I want Spurs cover? It was a real tough call there between Havertz and Solanke. I might regret it and I might switch out Havertz for Solanke, but yeah, I'll have a think on that one more time. But then just going further down, there he is, Flecken, 22%. So Flecken isn't the go-to goalkeeper among the engaged managers, but for me, he is. So yeah, there you have it. That is my team for game week 1, barring exceptional circumstances. And just to reiterate that any changes that I will make, hopefully I won't need to, will be pinned under this video on YouTube. And I keep on going on about, as always, if you can like, share, and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. But literally, it does help a lot that this channel has seen a massive increase in subs since my first preseason video, and it's greatly appreciated. If you're already subscribing, please like the video, pop a comment in, or simply share with your mates. And if you want to check out the rest of my preseason videos, a lot of relevant content still available. If you're not happy with this draft, want to do something different, then check out my preseason playlist, which will be in the description below. And apart from that, yeah, looking forward to engaging with you all during the 24-25 season. Keen to know your thoughts on this draft. Have I got the balance right? Have I got the balance wrong? Whatever happens, come rain or shine for game week 1, you know that you can't control what's going to happen apart from the choices that you make. And just on captaincy, I'll try and make a captaincy video just before the game week 1 deadline. But with Mohamed Salah in particular, it's a newly promoted team. We know he's got a fantastic record against newly promoted teams in general, and also in game week 1. So I kind of felt that I had to get him in. And there you have it. Let's just try and do a one view of my team as well, just if I can make it work before I go. It's going to look super small on your screens, but just want to make sure, just for screenshot purposes. There we go. So that is the final iteration of my team. Again, caveat, if I change my mind, then fair play to myself for doing that. But triple Newcastle, triple Liverpool, and a smattering of premium players with the big hitters in place. Take care and all the best.